The truth about Canaan in the Bible, Canaanites in biblical prophecies. There are many debates and uncertainties surrounding the history of the mysterious land of Canaan. Have you ever wondered who Canaan was and where he truly came from? Who was his father? And even more importantly, who were the first people to live in this land before the Israelites arrived? What most people don't realize is that long before being conquered, Canaan was already home to a powerful and intriguing civilization, the Canaanites. But who were these people? What was their culture like? What did they believe in? And how were they connected to major events of the ancient world? Get ready for an incredible journey through time as we uncover the hidden history of Canaan. If you find this topic fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss future content. Canaan, son of Ham and the Canaanites. Canaan is a name that has been passed down for centuries, wrapped in mystery, conflict, and deep historical significance. But how much do we really know about this ancient land and its role in human history? Historically, Canaan was a vast region that today includes modern-day Israel, along with areas such as the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. It also extended into parts of Jordan, covering land along the eastern bank of the Jordan River, as well as Lebanon and parts of the southern coast of Syria. This large geographic area is mentioned in many historical records and religious texts, such as the biblical books of Numbers 34:1-15 and Deuteronomy 3:8, which describe its borders and significance to ancient peoples. The name Canaan and the term Canaanites appear in ancient writings from different civilizations, including Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets, Egyptian inscriptions, and Phoenician texts. Interestingly, the people who lived in this region identified themselves as Canaanites. According to biblical tradition, they were believed to be the descendants of Ham, the son of Noah. References to Canaan are not recent. The earliest known records date back to around 1500s BC, more than 3,500 years ago. However, it wasn't until 1928, with the discovery of the ancient city-state of Ugarit, that researchers were able to gain deeper insight into the culture, religion, and way of life of the Canaanites. Archaeological excavations in Ugarit uncovered an extensive collection of texts written on clay tablets. These writings detailed myths and religious traditions that not only shaped Canaanite identity, but also influenced later civilizations, including the Hebrews and the Phoenicians. The discovery of Ugarit helped historians understand the beliefs, customs, and daily lives of the Canaanite people, offering a remarkable look into the complex history of this land. In the Bible, Canaan is not just the name of a land, but also the name of a character from the Old Testament, involved in one of the most debated and controversial stories in Scripture. Who was Canaan, and why is his name associated with a curse that affected generations? Canaan was the son of Ham and the grandson of Noah. According to the book of Genesis, all Canaanite peoples descended from him. If we trace his family line from the beginning of humanity, he would be the 12th generation after Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, Ham, Canaan. However, Canaan's story takes a troubling turn. After the Great Flood, the Bible describes an incident in which Noah became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, Noah's son, saw his father's nakedness and, instead of handling the situation respectfully, told his brothers Shem and Japheth in a dishonorable way. This moment would later be linked to a curse that shaped the fate of Canaan's descendants. Shem and Japheth, Noah's other sons, showed respect by covering their father without looking at him. When Noah woke up and realized what had happened, he did not curse Ham directly, but instead placed the curse on Ham's youngest son, Canaan. This detail has led to many different interpretations, as some mistakenly believe the curse was meant for Ham. In ancient times, it was common for a person's punishment to extend to their descendants, especially the youngest son, who often held a weaker position in the family. Noah's curse was severe. Canaan and his descendants would serve their brothers. From this lineage came the Canaanite people, who were later known for their idol worship, human sacrifices, and customs that were considered detestable in God's eyes. Eventually, the Canaanites came into direct conflict with the Hebrews, who saw their land as the promised land, but also viewed its inhabitants as people who had strayed far from God's will. Because of this, Canaan's story became more than just a personal one. It came to symbolize a lineage marked by hardships, judgment, and spiritual struggles that continued throughout the Old Testament. The Canaanites settled in what is now Canaan and Lebanon, holding on to their traditions and beliefs for many generations. But what was the true meaning of the curse on Canaan, and how did it shape the fate of the region's people? Many believe that all of Ham's sons were cursed, but this is a misunderstanding. The Bible clearly states that only Canaan was affected, not his brothers. Throughout history, some people have misused this story to claim that African people were cursed, but this belief is incorrect. The Bible and historical records do not support this idea. African peoples did not descend from Canaan, but from Ham's other sons, Mizraim, Cush, and Put. In fact, Ham's other descendants went on to establish great civilizations. For example, Cush became the ancestor of the Ethiopians and the people of southern Arabia, while Mizraim is associated with the founding of Egypt. These family lines are clearly recorded in Genesis chapter 9. Despite the curse, Canaan's lineage remained important in biblical history. One of the most remarkable examples is Rahab, a Canaanite woman who helped Hebrew spies in Jericho. Because of her faith and actions, she became part of the Messianic lineage and was a direct ancestor of Jesus Christ. This shows one of the central themes of faith, that God's grace is available to everyone, regardless of their background, and that He can change destinies and fulfill His divine purpose. Therefore, the curse on Canaan should not be seen as an eternal punishment on his descendants, but rather as a specific event within biblical and historical context. The name Canaan has deep roots in ancient languages spoken by the Canaanites and Phoenicians. It is thought to come from the word Canaan, which can mean purple, referring to the famous dye made from murex sea snails, a key product in Phoenician trade. Alternatively, the name may also mean lowlands, describing the geography of the region, or it may simply have been a term used to identify the Canaanite people themselves. Interestingly, there are clues suggesting that the Canaanites had a brownish skin tone, similar to their ancestor Ham. In some linguistic traditions, the Arabic term muad is used to describe this in-between skin tone, which strengthens the idea of a historical connection between the peoples descended from Ham. The Canaanites and their cultural successors, including the Phoenicians, were highly skilled sailors and traders. Their expertise in navigating the seas allowed them to spread their culture, knowledge, and even their genetic heritage across different regions of the Mediterranean. Through extensive migrations, they reached Crete, where they interacted with and intermarried with Greeks, Romans, and other Indo-European peoples who descended from Japheth. This blending of lineages, cultures, and civilizations played a crucial role in shaping the history of many ancient peoples. It also highlights how human societies are deeply interconnected, rather than separated by rigid divisions. Rather than focusing on simplistic ideas of curses or segregation, the story of Ham's descendants reveals a legacy of influence, adaptability, and resilience, one that left a lasting impact on human history. The descendants of Canaan. According to Genesis 10:15, Canaan had several sons, with his eldest being Sidon, from whom the Sidonians descended. The Sidonians were the original inhabitants of the ancient city of Sidon. Though often considered a separate people, they were in fact direct descendants of Canaan. Canaan's second son was Heth, who became the ancestor of the powerful Hittites. Although the Hittites are commonly linked to other Middle Eastern civilizations, their origins can be traced back to the Canaanite lineage, showing the deep and complex ties between ancient peoples. In addition to the Sidonians and Hittites, Canaan was the forefather of several other nations, including the Jebusites, the original founders of Jerusalem before the Israelite conquest; the Amorites, one of the most influential Canaanite groups frequently mentioned in the Bible; the Girgashites, a Canaanite tribe recorded in Scripture; the Hivites, inhabitants of various regions, including Shechem and Gibeon; the Arvites and Sinites, lesser-known groups likely living in northern Canaan; the Arvites, associated with the island of Arwad, a key Phoenician maritime center; the Hamathites, inhabitants of the ancient city of Hamath, located in modern-day Syria. Although each of these groups had their own unique cultural and linguistic traditions, They were all connected through a common ancestry. Together, they formed a diverse and complex network of Canaanite tribes, which played an important role in shaping the historical and geopolitical landscape of the region. It is important to note that the Canaanites were not Semitic but rather Hamitic, descendants of Ham, the son of Noah. Their contributions to history, from trade and navigation to city building and cultural exchange, demonstrate the rich and lasting impact of Canaanite civilization across the ancient world. This distinction is important for understanding the ethnic and cultural diversity of ancient peoples. While the Semitic groups descended from Shem, the Canaanites formed a separate branch within biblical genealogy, developing their own traditions, customs, and language. Each Canaanite tribe had its own language, and although there were regional differences, their languages remained closely related to one another. These languages and dialects belonged to the Canaanite language family, which included Ancient Amorite, spoken by the Amorites, an influential group in Mesopotamia and Canaan. Early Phoenician, the language that later evolved into Hebrew and Classical Phoenician, which laid the foundation for the modern alphabet. Ugaritic, used in the city-state of Ugarit, its cuneiform writing system preserved myths and religious texts that are crucial for understanding Canaanite culture. Canaanite, the language spoken by the inhabitants of Canaanite city-states. The influence of Canaanite languages was deep and long-lasting. They directly shaped the development of Hebrew and also influenced other languages in the Middle East. This means that the descendants of Canaan not only spread across different regions, but also left behind a linguistic and cultural legacy that continued to impact civilizations and written communication throughout history. Canaanite religion and worship. The Canaanites were a deeply religious people, but unlike the Hebrews, their faith was based on polytheism, meaning they worshipped many gods and spiritual beings. Several of these deities are mentioned in the Bible, often in conflict with the monotheistic beliefs of the Israelites. Some of the most important gods in Canaanite religion included Baal, the god of storms and fertility, often depicted as a bull to symbolize strength and agricultural power. His worship was widespread, involving sacrifices and fertility rituals. Asherah, a mother goddess associated with fertility, often worshipped in sacred groves and at ritual altars. She was considered Baal's consort and was also connected to Phoenician religious practices. Moloch, one of the most feared Canaanite gods, as his worship involved human sacrifices, especially of children, as a way to seek divine favor and prosperity. Dagon, the god of harvest and grain, widely worshipped by the Philistines and other regional peoples. His temple in Gaza is mentioned in the Bible, particularly in the story of Samson. Canaanite worship was not just symbolic, it included powerful and often extreme religious rituals. Many of their ceremonies involved magic, necromancy, communicating with the dead, and human sacrifices in hopes of receiving blessings, protection, and prosperity. These rituals were known to include trance-like dances, self-mutilation, and blood offerings as acts of devotion to their gods. However, these so-called gods were nothing more than impure spirits in disguise, deceiving those who worshipped them by promising power and material wealth. This spiritual deception was one of the main reasons why the Hebrews were commanded to eliminate these practices and devote themselves entirely to the worship of the one true God. The history of the Canaanites serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of idolatry and straying from true faith. Their customs and religious practices were strongly condemned by God, who warned the Israelites never to follow their ways. Thank you for watching this video until the end. May God bless your life and always guide you in truth. See you soon.